My name is Dusan Danilovic, and senior lecturer and research professor at Vanderbilt University. I've finished my undergraduate studies in Europe at Belgrade University, and I got my PhD at Temple University in Philadelphia in solid state physics. My undergraduate major was astrophysics.
Oh, wow, that's really impressive. Do you mind explaining in simple terms that are understandable to a high schooler what your research is about?
At this moment, my research is mostly something that is very similar to work of astronomical Indiana Jones or someone like that. I'm trying with team that I'm part of to look how ancient astronomical knowledge of, let us say, Greek classical period was transferred through the Middle Ages in the area of South Mediterranean. So basically in the eastern parts of the Mediterranean, how this knowledge was transferred through the time and how people used it maybe in order to design some of the buildings.
Oh, okay. That's really cool. And then what's I guess, implications for your research? Like, why is it
Well,
important?
basically, you would like to know how people shared ideas, how ideas moved,
Yeah.
because common knowledge is something that works with that transfer of knowledge went through the Spain and then came into Italy of 15th century, and then we got something that is called Renaissance, so to speak, and from
Yeah.
that modern things started. We have some kind of a different approach. We think that people from the area collaborated for a very long period of time, that collaborations were never stopped, and that there was some kind of a boundary, let us say, put into the sea somewhere east of Italy that would close the eastern parts of the Mediterranean. So that is something that we would like to prove. The problem with this is that there is a lack of material evidence, which means documents are lacking because of
Hmm.
the historical reasons. So you need to look into, for instance, design of buildings and try to figure out if these buildings were done in a sense that they used some kind of that knowledge. That
Oh,
is.
okay. Yeah, and then what you said earlier, do you mind going into your methodologies a little bit? Because I find this really fascinating, and it's not a researcher I've talked to has researched this kind of thing before.
So basically, it's combination of humanities and sciences.
Yeah.
So there is this approach within the group to integrate knowledge of different people with different experiences. So I'm using whatever I know about astronomy, which is science,
Yeah.
hard science, so to speak, and then to combine that with history of art, history of architecture, that is a field of specialty of other members of the team. Plus, we have several people who are doing computer modelings and visualization where we can test our theories in this
Yeah.
case and see if this works. So it's a collaborative work that combines spherical astronomy, but also computer modeling and some of the knowledge of history and history of art.
That's really cool. And then with, I feel recent technology, I know that there's been a huge shift, especially towards AI, and there's a lot of more instruments being made. How has that impacted your research? And where do you see your research going in 10 years? What can students begin to focus on?
Well, we'll see how the things are going to go in 10 years. It's a very long period of time. But what we do is something that we really apply data science. And in the case of data science, it's very useful to have some kind of a tool, call it however you want, but you can call it artificial intelligence, but some kind of a tool that can help you look into huge amounts of data. And we are dealing with many points in these buildings and the way how they're designed. So there is a possibility for us to use this in efficient way to produce some kind of a data that we can then figure out if we can use for our research.
Okay, I just find it super cool because I love history, but I'm in a neuroscience lab, and so I've always thought of these two things as completely separate, but I'm really into history, and so this just kind of blew my mind.
So the thing is, for a period of time, science is and humanities were really separated fields.
Yeah.
But now with this understanding that there are places of contact and also enrichment, because people then can learn from each other experiences, and certain things can be only done if you combine people. So if you really want to test something that we are testing, you need to combine people who are in sciences and humanities.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it does not work. And people who would be in humanities would be left without understanding of the sciences, and us on the other side, we might not find the right topic, so to speak, for studies without them. So
Yeah.
combination is useful for all of us.
Yeah, most definitely. And then how did you discover this field? And how did you start your own research?
Well, I have connected and I know people in humanities. So we are friends and we talk about these things, and then we shoot some ideas. And when I was your age, I also liked history, and I didn't see the always connection between sciences and humanities. And now in certain moments, this started to play to our mutual interests, so to speak.
Yeah, and then how do you suggest high schoolers who want to get into your field, I guess get a start in your field? Like what can they start to do to understand what you're doing better?
Well, there are several things. This is quite a new field. So the thing is, I would really suggest do two things. Do lots of math. So
Oh,
math is the language of physics, and by mastering it, you will eventually get into certain processes and certain fields, and also read a lot. So read serious books, so to speak. And combination about these things will open you to do two different fields and make you interested into some of this type of research that is synergetic research, so to speak.
yeah. Also, like on the topic of high schoolers, what kind of tips would you give someone that wants to go into research?
That's an excellent question. First, and especially because I'm dealing with many undergraduate students, so who were high schoolers, and
Yeah.
I would really advise learning the basics of the things. As I said, math, physics, chemistry, but be very proficient in these things. And also do not focus yourself only to the sciences. Open your interest towards the art, literature, history, because these are different types of experiences who are also enriching and also can help you eventually understanding processes in the world. So read a lot, do a lot of problems, spend less time video gaming.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
that so that would be some kind of advice.
You mentioned that you work with a lot of undergraduate students. What makes someone stand out to you? Because I know that, like, for me, I cold emailed a lot of professors and I try to talk to a lot, but like, you just kind of get like filtered out with everyone else. But what makes someone catch your eye?
There is something that is, in my opinion, very important. And part of education, in my opinion, is personal contact, which means professor should know student and student should know professor, because then the transfer of knowledge is more substantial. Knowing interests, knowing someone's favorite movies or favorite music or favorite hobbies helps you connect on a much more personal level. And when you have this personal connection, then process of transfer of knowledge is easier, because transfer of knowledge learning process is not something that is easy. It's like any practice, you need to practice, and practice means a little bit of suffering.
Yeah.
So like preparation for the tests and stuff, these things most of the time are not fun. But if you have this personal relationship and you have a trust between professor and a student, that makes all these things reasonable, so to speak, and easier to undertake. What I tell my students is always get to know your professors. Professors and students are, and this comes to the high school also. So giving you some kind of a tip, that is, we are on the same task. It's not that we are two opposite groups of people and one wants to get the other, or something like that. No, we are basically, our main goal is for students to get knowledge. And this is why we are here. And in order to do that, we need to collaborate. Without collaboration and without understanding that this is collaboration, things do not happen. Most of the professors or teachers are into this activity simply because they would like to see students advance, get the knowledge, and further their professional and personal goals for the future.
Actually, this just occurred to me, but I feel like the classes that I learn best in are with the teachers who like are super interactive and they're really passionate about their subject. And so they really encourage students to ask them questions, to go out of their way to answer or like explore new topics. Yeah, so I think it's definitely like a mutual effort. But similar to like the last question I asked you, what do you think makes a good researcher? Like what type of traits make them very adept for this field?
There are several things. First, I think without curiosity, genuine curiosity, you cannot succeed as some kind of researcher. The second very important thing is persistence, because research is very tedious and sometimes it can be boring and it is time consuming. So these things you need to persist doing it, to work on this and to get not to give up. And the very important thing is curiosity, persistence, but also open mind. Remember that the science is some kind of a process. This is not some kind of a closed system, and that eventually whatever you do, it will be questioned, let us say it like that. And don't think that you are the one who is giving the last word in particular field or particular topic. Be someone who is this member of a family that wants to open the knowledge. So it's simply be ready that at a certain moment say, oh, I made a mistake. Things that I thought they were happening in a certain way, it's not like that. I need to adjust my way of thinking, whatever that is, to adapt or to let people challenge my opinions and don't be personally offended. Sometimes it becomes more like ego story. I'm smart and I found this and I think that anyone should follow. That's true. Most of the time researchers know about the topic the best in the world, but eventually people start to show up and explore and question you. So just let it be.
Yeah. And then I think that's something that I've also kind of noticed with, I feel like a lot of people do research to try and get that prestige. They try to get their paper in the journal. But I feel like at the end of the day, research is about trying to discover what's going on. And it's more about what you can contribute and less about what research can do for you.
That is true, but we live in a world that is not ideal, and people need to make some compromises. They have families, they have friends, pets, they have their lives. And sometimes in this not ideal world, you make certain decisions. But it is important to be aware of. So
Yeah.
this is something that is crucial, not to present them in a shape that they're not. And being humble is not a bad thing for a good researcher.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned that research can be very tedious. What do you find most challenging about it? And how do you like overcome those challenges as they come up?
It's basically time consuming. When you have experiments can last for days. Certain experimental equipment does not perform all the time in correct fashion. You need to repair it. You need to adjust sensors or something like that. It's not fun. I mean, sometimes simply computers do not work as you want it to work, or you made some kind of a mistake in your program that helps you do a certain model, and then you cannot see it for a while because you are so invested and so focused on it. So all of these things are not easy. You need to find the ways to move away from it, to relax, to think about outside of the box, and simply sometimes recognize that for a while you need to pursue other venue of the same research or a different topic of your research, and the things might come clear. So there are two different parts. Experimentalists and theorists have different challenges, but in both cases, nothing comes easy. So whatever type of discovery you are pursuing, there are always some kind of a difficulties, because scientific work is discovering how the world works, whatever part of the world you want to discover, and world is very complicated thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. That's all the questions I had.